Now, Chris Shelton has a pretty diverse resume. Former clown for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, ex-Wilmington cop, and a professional Ronald McDonald. Now, romantic love is wonderful, but love comes in all forms. Love and caring for others, even people we don't know, is one example. Here's a true story by Chris Shelton, who, in my opinion, is a clown with a big heart.
Some of you have heard this one before, but this, I agreed with my friend over here, Robin, that this is the night for this story, because it's all about love, passing on and on. It's called Karma. I was portraying Ronald McDonald on a Southwest Airlines flight whose passengers included kids with cancer and their families who stay at the Ronald McDonald House. We were flying to see Santa, which in this case entailed going up in the air, circling around for about an hour, and then landing at a different part of the airport next to a hangar decorated as the North Pole. A big Christmas party was to be held for all the families. Now during the flight, I juggled, jostled, and joked with all the kids. But when the time came to find a seat for the final approach, I happened to sit next to a very special young boy. This boy had recently undergone a bone marrow transplant, which his father later advised me was his son's last hope for recovery. The father further stated that the boy had been through so many different procedures and had endured so much pain in his young life that after this it was all in God's hands. I must say that the boy didn't look well either. This particular course of treatment had left him with this greasy substance continually being extracted through his pores. But to talk to this boy, you would never know that he was going through so much hell. He was so positive, so nice, and so genuinely caring towards others that he made me want to be a better person. As we were descending for landing, the boy turned to me and asked, "Hey Ronald, will you come to my birthday party next month?" Without hesitation, I responded, "If I am not already scheduled to perform somewhere on your big day, then I will be there." His mother, who, unbeknownst to me, was sitting in the seat in front of us, heard this whole exchange. She signaled me to lean forward, and then she whispered, "Thanks for the offer, but we live way up north of here in upper state New York." To this, I repeated my original response, "If I am not already scheduled that day, I will be there." It was a great holiday party, and I was honored to be the main attraction, even over Santa. At the conclusion, I reiterated my desire to entertain at the boy's party, so his parents wrote down all their info for me, including the event date. It turned out I wasn't booked anywhere that day, but only because it was my one day off that week. When I told my wife what I had promised, her response was, "What about your own kids? I think they would like to see you too." So although Cindy wasn't thrilled with my decision, I drove a guilt-filled 5 hours north to perform gratis for the boys' party. You see, when I had called his parents to confirm everything, they had offered to pay me for coming, but I declined the suggestion. When they tried to insist on payment, my response was, "Your son was actually the one who booked my services, and there was never any mention of money." I performed as big of a show as I could in their living room and played with the kids for a couple of hours afterwards. Before leaving, the boy wanted to give me a tour of their house, including his room. It was there that I further came to realize the unique specialness of this boy. His whole room was decorated with photos and memorabilia to honor all military, police officers, firefighters, and the 9/11 heroes. And he had a heartwarming story to tell about every item in the room and its special meaning to him. He spoke so wonderfully of the great goodness in people, not even realizing that he is one of the true heroes that make this a better world for all of us. I left their house on an emotional high and was followed to my Ronald McDonald van by the boy's father. As I was saying my farewells, the father placed a big wad of money into my hand. I handed it back. He attempted to place it in my hand again, but I refused to take it. He said, "You don't realize what a special thing that you have done and how much it has meant to my boy. Please take this." I replied, "If I take the money, then this will become just another job that I was hired to perform and not a special thing. And your son is such a wonderful person that it really means a lot to me that this remains special." With tears in his eyes, he finally relented, and I drove away. I must admit that the story I'm sharing occurred at a time when my family could really use some extra money. So for the whole drive home, I couldn't stop wondering how much money was in that rather large wad. On arrival home, I told my wife what I had done, or rather did not do, or did not take, or did not now have, and I'm happy to say her immediate response was, "You did the right thing." With her blessing, I was able to stop questioning my decision, and I soon forgot the whole matter of the money. On the other hand, the boy's father obviously didn't forget. He must have called the Ronald McDonald House executive director and Southwest Airlines to advise them of my visit, because the next thing I knew, I was invited to a meeting of both organizations, at which I was a recipient of 2 tickets to anywhere that Southwest happens to fly, and I was given $1,000 in spending money for the trip. Cindy and I flew to Washington State, took a ferry to the Friday Islands, and had a wonderful whale watching vacation. 9 years later, I ran into the boy's father at a Ronald McDonald House fundraiser. He was alone. I was afraid to approach him because I didn't want to hear any bad news, but he came up to me to see if I was the same Ronald, his Ronald, the real Ronald. And then he told me how sorry he was that his son wasn't with him, but he couldn't miss his football practice.
Yeah.